help me, Jesus. Help me, Jesus. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, Graven on His Palms. I know it's been a while. I think I've just been on a journey of womanhood. So yeah, so many different changes on this journey, so much learning and so much unlearning. And this is why I'm back. I'm back to share the experiences. As God is teaching me, I'm like, I got to get it out there and share it with you guys. The title of the series, or this series, the title is While You Wait. It's taken from a blog that I wrote, and it's all to do with the waiting season, that season of waiting on God for a husband. And God has taught me so many lessons during this waiting season. And I want to share it with you guys because I think that it may help in how we wait and our experience while waiting. So this journey of waiting on God for a husband can be tough. For some, it can be a really painful wait. Like you go through the motions of this year, 2023, I'm going to find my husband. Lord, before I'm 30, help me to find someone. 30 will come and go. By this time next year, I would have met my boyfriend. Next year will come and it will go and you will not have met him. Wonderful. And then you ask yourself, am I really ever going to get married? Like, is this thing even in my destiny? Is it going to happen for me? My eggs are dying. And so we can go through so many different emotions, and that's just from ourselves. Those are the questions that we might be asking ourselves. Talk less of the questions coming from family members or aunties. Aunties in particular. There's aunties that are disturbing us. You go to your friend's wedding or your cousin's wedding, you find an auntie there saying, don't worry, by this time next year we'll celebrate you, don't worry. And it's just like, I wasn't worried at this moment, but thank you for bringing my attention to it. And you get friends that might be saying, why haven't you found someone? You're always around so many guys, just bare men in your church. And you just thinking to yourself, I know that fact as well. Not sure why they're not looking at me, but I do know that there are men. Yeah. Thank you for letting me know. No shade to any of my friends or family that have said these things. It's totally fine. I think when this is a painful experience for someone already, those kind of questions can just add to that pain. They can just remind you that you're very much single. And so, what do we do while we wait? I want to share with you how I believe God desires us to wait and how it can be a most blessed experience. So in this first part of the series, we're going to be dealing with our desires. How do you know that you have a right desire for marriage? So we're going to look at the differences between having a desire for marriage or being desperate for marriage. Now, they are two totally different things. But I find that many of us women, we fall into one of those two categories. I think I haven't been looking at the camera lens, which I just noticed now. This is what happens when you're out of practice. Where was I? Desires. Now, having a desire to be married, what does that even mean? If we break it down to just, I guess, the simple thing is that we have a desire to love and be loved, right? And that desire is fine. That's actually from God. We know that God is love and he desires to be loved and by us, and he loves. And so if we are made in his image, then it makes sense that we have also a desire to love and to be loved. And the question is whether we stay in that desire or if we move to desperation. We're going to use women in the Bible to show the difference between desire and desperation. And hopefully, by the end of this explanation, you can find out where you are in this journey, whether you're in desire, which is where God wants you to be, or if you're in desperation. You can find it in Genesis chapter 16, 17, and 21. And we're focusing on the story of Abraham and Sarah. Her desire turns to desperation. She becomes desperate for the thing that God has already promised. And in her desperation, she decides to tell her husband to sleep with her handmaid to bring about this child. And so what we see here is that Sarah decides that she has to have it now, in her time, in her own way, and she goes to bring about a child. And we know the devastating consequences that had. If we just try and bring out the lessons from that into our lives, when we are in this wait and we're waiting on God for a husband, are we doing things to try and bring about a husband at any means necessary? I'll give you an example of what that might look like. Because we desire to have a husband at all costs, we may go and look for a man outside of our faith. We might be unequally yoked with somebody, going against what God says. We might compromise. We might not listen to counselors that are telling us that this thing isn't good. Maybe we should not consider this person. We might block out all the voices that are telling us sensible things to consider, just because we want what we want. There's so many ways that we can become desperate for a husband instead of just having a desire for a husband. And so we don't want to be in that space of desperation. It doesn't reap anything good. And in the next parts of this series, I'm going to talk about ways where even if we do find we're in desperation at this point, there is hope. We can move into a safe desire. And I'm going to give some tips on how we can make that transition into the place where God wants us to be, which is in a desire where we trust Him to fulfill it. So that's Sarah's story. And unfortunately, she didn't trust in the Lord to fulfill the desire of her heart. But I hope you trust in Him. But let's look at another example, a much more brighter and wonderful example of a woman who did put her trust in God and who stayed in the desire, and God fulfilled it in His way. Can you think of who that woman might be? Well, if you guessed it was Hannah, then you got it right. In 1 Samuel chapter 1, we find the story of Hannah. Hannah desired to have a child, just like Sarah. Interesting. But she was barren, so she could not have children. And so we see her pleading her case before God. She pleads her case before God, the one who can give her the desires of her heart. Now, she'd been barren for a long time, so we can only imagine how long she had been asking for that child. But she doesn't give up. She doesn't try and get the child in a different way. She doesn't say, oh, go with my handmaid in order to get a child. She doesn't do anything that Sarah did. She just pleads her case and waits on God, who she knows provides children. We see in the story of Hannah that her desire is fulfilled in the right way. She has stayed with her God-given desire and she went about it in a godly way, and it was fulfilled. Sarah and Hannah, both start off with having a desire, but one becomes desperate, and that desperation causes many negative consequences. But on the other hand, Hannah, she goes to Christ and pleads her case. And this should be our experience. We should be like Hannah, where we have a desire and we so much desire the thing that we want that we go to God for Him to fulfill it. And this is how we stay in desire and not be desperate. I want you to ask yourself the question, do you think you're a Hannah in this situation, or have you acted like a Sarah? If you have acted like a Sarah, then do not be dismayed, because God is merciful And he desires to bring you into the experience that Hannah had, where you can trust in him with all your heart to fulfill the promise that he has made to you. Any desire that we have in our hearts that are pure and holy or that are God-given, it's for God to fulfill. And so if you found yourself not trusting God for the promise that he has made to you, then I want you to be encouraged to go on a journey of trusting God, especially in this waiting season, and recite his precious promises to you about how he's at your right hand to help you, about how he will provide all your needs according to his riches in glory, about how his plans for you are to prosper you and not to harm you, and how he will give you the desires of your heart. Recite, memorize, meditate on these promises and begin a journey of learning to trust God so that you can maintain a holy desire that he will fulfill in his most perfect time. I pray you've been encouraged by what I've shared. And as always, remember that you are graven on his palms. And whatever concerns you concerns the Lord. Take care. Until next time, friends. Ta-ta.